We've now gone live.
We're live now.
We've gone live now. So for everyone that missed it, oh, what a great start. Here we go. Right. So let's get the scene again. No one knows. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We'll do it again. Here we go. So no surprises now. The man who, what I want to do, Greg, I want to set the scene again because I want to bring in the reason the main man, Charlton Audio Royalty, that I wanted to get on to do this with me, the Charlton transfer specials, which aren't going to be what's going on at the moment in the current season. Obviously not. There's much better places you can go for that information. What I wanted to do is bring on the man who gave us this beautiful bit of audio.
Charlton left-hand side, out ball to Aribo back inside to Cullen. Cullen trying to take his man on. Chip ball back across, Bowers there, Pearce is there, Bowers with a header, and it's Charlton! Oh, he's got us! Oh, Patrick Moore! You absolute German beauty! Woo! Dreamland! Charlton have scored! With seconds remaining, we've done it all! Get in! Come on! What a time to be here at Wembley!
Oh my word, indeed. Right, we got there eventually. I'm so sorry, Greg. Right, I've interrupted you there. Thank you so much for coming in. So what we're going to do today, we're going to be going through the greatest ever Charlton transfers. But what I wanted to ask you was where that moment come from, because I've regretted it ever since I had you on the pod, really early on in the pod that I did last season. Where did that emotion come from? Why did you cry like a little girl?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know a little bit of this because we did this about a minute and a half ago, but no one knows.
No spoilers.
Professional duo that we are. Basically, there's a few myths to kind of disturb and eradicate, because a lot of people say to me, "Oh, you were crying. Oh, you can hear the tears." I actually, at that moment, I did kind of well up. I'm not going to lie, but at that moment when I said we've done it, I wasn't crying. So the way Wembley works when you do games there as press is that you have the written press in front of you, and then right at the back row of the press box you have the commentators and live broadcasters. So you have BBC 5 Live, TalkSport, any local radio, etc. And on that back row you had me and Tell, and we were kind of, I can't remember who was next to us. It was kind of like just normal, neutral written press. I think I remember Henry Winter was like someone who was quite in front of us. And when the ball came in, right at the back of this press row, there's like a little walkway where you get to the press room. So you've got a bit of space to jump up and move, which is not usually the case when you go to some League One grounds. But as the ball went in, I've kind of got off my seat. So I've kind of got off my seat like that. I'm sort of like on the edge of the seat like that. And then I've kind of stood up. And as I've stood up, Bowers got it in. And we're at that end, and I've just climbed over Tell, got him in almost a headlock as he's screaming, "You absolute German beauty!" And then I think from memory, there's like a slight bit of silence where you can just hear Tell kind of making these noises. And it's at that moment I looked at him, and we like caught eyes, like almost like the worst rom-com in history.
And you kissed.
Well, yeah, I was a bit worried at one point, and we've shared many hotel rooms together, let me tell you. And at that moment in time, he was kind of like he was in bits. He was crying.
Yeah.
And at that moment in time, I was like, we've done it, as almost to say, like, this is what we've been dreaming of. Like a last minute winner at Wembley, like that. It was that feeling. We've actually won this. I can't believe it. It wasn't until, I don't know, like, I knew, like Tell had said, the absolute German beauty, and I remember thinking that's a really cool line, and I remember thinking our fans will like that. But I didn't think about we've done it, Tell, at all until about 2 or 3 days later. Louis Mendes used to record all our audio for Charlton Live. I think he still does now, and he messaged us and said, "This is gonna go like big," and I was like, "Oh, like probably because of the absolute German beauty thing."
Yeah.
And then as soon as it went out, like you can imagine, everyone was saying, "Oh, that we've done it, Tell." And I think people like it because it's probably what they were saying to other people in the crowd that day. They were kind of saying, "Oh, we've done it, Sam," or "Sam, we've won it. Can you believe it?" And it's that kind of like raw emotion. And a lot of people say really nice stuff about it because they say that's what they said to their son or their daughter or whatever. And I don't want to disrespect Tel here, but I think of Tel as like a relative now because we've been doing it almost 10 years together. So that was our moment together, if you know what I mean.
Oh, mate.
Through the years.
Lovely.
Yeah. So it's our kind of like, for every low we've ever suffered as a fan doing these commentaries and spending God knows how many hours together on the road and stuff, it's almost like that was our kind of reward that day and that moment. So, you know, I think if it happened now in the same circumstance, I don't think we'd change anything about it. We'd still be you know, and that's why we try and bring, we're fans, you know, Tel's been a fan for over 50 years. Like he's seen it all with this club. He's, you know, and I'm a relatively new fan in terms of I've been since 2001, so it's nowhere near the kind of suffering that someone like Tel's had to go through and many other Charlton fans. But I like to think that in those 20 years we've seen enough enough tripe as well, with the exception of probably the first 6. So yeah, it was a combination of all those things, and yeah, you know, I love hearing it because it's not because I love the sound of my own voice, but I love hearing it because it just brings back like memories of what was such a special day, and it's just such a shame we couldn't kick on from there.
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't have guessed then in that moment that would be the peak, would you? That is epic. Well, great. I mean, that sounds like something you're going to get tattooed on you as well, or at least on your gravestone. That'd be incredible.
Someone apparently has, but I've not seen proof of that. So if someone has, I'm not sure I want to see it, actually. I don't know. Depends where. Depends
where it is. Yeah. So what we're going to, before we go on to what, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. Basically, we've both chosen our top 5 all-time transfers. Obviously, you've done your really cool, young, trendy thing of just picking players from when you've seen them. I've done the dirty work and gone back through the archives. Although, obviously, some records are a lot harder to get hold of from the sort of the really good old days. But we're going to go through our top 5 ever signings. Players we paid money for. So that's the only condition. We're going to do a little series of these, and there will be a show for loans. We'll do one for free transfers, but today it's going to be all about peak players we spent money on, and we're going to decide once and for all who the greatest ever signing for Charlton was, greatest ever transfer in was. But before we go on to that, obviously it's been a busy summer. There'll be other podcasts covering the ins and outs, but obviously you covered the Dartford game the other day. How was it? Anyone jump out at you? Anyone you think is going to really kick on this season in particular?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the Dartford game. It was for those who tuned into the Slovenia game the following few days later, that was less traumatic to watch in terms of the issues the guys had with Slovenia TV out there. But yeah, Dartford was good. It was, I mean, you can never judge the opposition and the way you properly play in these sort of matches. I've seen us beat teams 6-7-0, and I've seen us lose to rubbish teams and then go on to have a brilliant season. So I never really feel you can judge results or anything. I know some people were a little bit concerned that we're conceding goals against Millwall, not scoring, etc. And at this stage, like, it generally doesn't matter. What you want to see is patterns of play and partnerships building. And the one really encouraging thing I saw at Dartford was a couple of things I haven't probably seen for a few years in our pre-season. And that's, you're seeing patterns of play being used and exercised in these matches already. You're seeing movement. You're seeing players come short, then go long. You're seeing our wing backs combining for goals. And getting in the final third a lot more. So, you know, let's take Thierry Small as an example. He was always an attacking threat last season since he joined, but suddenly he's looking like he could score a couple, or he's looking like he's getting in the box more. So we've not seen him as a goal scoring wing back, or thought of him in that regard. But you see someone like that contributing. I think he got 2 assists on the day, or certainly at least 1. Tanae Watson scored a goal and almost got another assist. Like, these are your wing backs. Asimwe scored as well, and he's a wing back. So you're starting to think, okay, well, we've obviously lost Alfie May and lost 20 odd goals from him this season. And I don't think his replacements in Godden and Hadme are designed to automatically score 20 goals. I think the plan is for them to bring in the likes of your wing backs or your midfielders to contribute much more. So definitely positive signs. I mean, I'm covering the game at Crystal Palace tomorrow, and I'm really excited to see that against, probably some better players than what we saw against, well, definitely better players than what we saw against Dartford. To see physically at what level we're at after the game on Tuesday, and to also see a couple of more, a bit more advanced. I thought Luke Berry, I mean, a level above for me in terms of his intelligence, his movement, his passing. I think the only question mark with him is not ability at all, is fitness. How many games can he play for Charlton this season? How many 90 minutes can he play? And if he plays tomorrow, which he might not, he might have played 70 odd minutes on Tuesday and then he's doing 30 tomorrow, whatever. Then that's a player I'd like to see. Hopefully, physically is still competing at the highest level. And then I think Alex Mitchell's the one signing that I've been really excited about.
Yeah,
one
there
of
was
many.
a lot of press about him, wasn't there? There was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
About
Well,
him.
it fits the criteria of something we've not had in terms of he's a 6 foot plus centre half who's played the right side of a back three, centre half of a back three, and left side of a back three. So he's a little bit versatile in that regard. He's at an age where he's reaching the levels that he should be a top end League One defender now, and Millwall haven't opted to give him an opportunity in pre-season, which maybe is a little bit of surprise, but they do have good quality at centre half and a lot of experience there. So, maybe they saw it as an opportunity to get some money and utilise that on some new players. But for us, I think he adds height, he adds a little bit of pace as well, by the sounds of it, from the reports at Lincoln. And what I was really impressed with at Dartford was he was commanding that back three, and he was I think to be fair, Zach Mitchell to his right, but I think it was Reg to his left. So Reg is more experienced than Alex. Yeah, Alex was the one commanding that back three. So it's clear that he's got potentially maybe an eye on captaincy in the future. He's lived in the area for the last, I think he said, since he was 16. So was that 6 years or so? So
he's going to have to move house. He's going to be settled in already.
Exactly.
We see it so many times with players, don't you? That's the issue.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the one quality that a lot of Charlton fans maybe are kind of taking for granted is who our manager is. So when we talk about signings, we're adding to the squad, which obviously we all needed to do after last season. But also we've got a manager whose reputation is renowned for improving young talent and getting the maximum out of players, such as Luke Berry, for example, or Raduk Mpanzu at Luton, players like that who play in League Two conference level. And he developed them into high-end Championship and then Premier League players. So for someone like Alex Mitchell, that feels exciting. And you're getting a coach or a manager, should I say, who has coached players to then go and play at the highest level when maybe their ability-wise, when he first worked with them, wasn't at that level. So there might be some surprises this season in terms of who develops well, who comes through that we might not have expected to start games or score goals or get assists or whatever. So I'm just really excited to see what we do now. I think we probably still need maybe another 3 signings. I think goalkeepers.
I think that's realistic. The way we started, I think that it's realistic that it keeps going. I mean, you would have liked to see them go away together, and obviously the longer it goes, the less time they're getting. But as long as they come in before that window shuts, that's big. You mentioned the patterns of play and everything. I remember watching that Aberdeen game pre-season last year, and watching Anderson and the Simway. And them linking up with Campbell as well. It was like these lads have been playing together for so long. It obviously made sense, and then it just didn't seem to work in the season. So there's no guarantees it works in the season. But like you said, the signs are there. And rather than having Dean Holden, who was great, lovely guy, you do feel like Jones has got that reputation to actually bring these players on, get them working together, and they'll be constantly thinking about the structure of how to get out of League One because he's done it already, whereas Dean Holden didn't have that experience. So, yeah, fingers crossed what you said is true, and we're going to win the league. That'd be nice.
That'd be great, mate. Yeah.
So we got 5. We've got 5 players each. 5 players that Charlton Athletic have spent money on, and we believe them to be the best signings. So we've sort of done them in order from your 5th best upwards, and we're going to be competing on each one to see who we reckon is the best. So I'll play a clip of your first chosen player, and then you can tell me why you've picked him. Let's go for it now.
Cool.
Arsenal looking a little casual, and Vieira has got a job on his hands here, and Klaus Jensen's chip is absolutely awesome. And Charlton go 3-1 up at Highbury. and you can see what it means to them. A concerned look on the face of Arsene Wenger, and no wonder, because Arsenal dithered and dallied, and of all people, it was Vieira. It wasn't the best of throws from Ashley Cole, who's had a nightmare start to the second half, but Vieira got...
So I've got his stats, but go on, tell me why, Jens. Oh, we spoke about him a lot previously in your pod, obviously, but why one of the best signings ever, do you reckon?
Yeah, I must admit, when you messaged saying this is going to be our first topic, I didn't realise it was paid to begin with, and I was sort of thinking, okay, well, there's a few players over the years that we've gotten free and then sold for profits or whatever. So when I was compiling this list, I was trying to take that into equation in terms of we paid for, then got profit for, or we sold for whatever price. So some of these are ranked higher, despite maybe not being as good a player as Klaus. Yeah. But with Klaus, it was a case of, you know, you look at Charlton in those early 2000 periods where we went from being a side that just got promoted from the Championship to being a regular in the Premier League. And Klaus, for me, is at the heart of that, because he is probably that first player we signed of real, genuine Premier League quality to take Charlton to the next step. You know, around that period, players like Jonathan Johansson came in, slightly later Jason Yule, and there were players that stopped us from being like potentially a yo-yo club to being we're going to be competing for mid-table stroke top half Premier League. Those years he was there, Klaus, I mean, goals like that against Man United at home, you know, individual brilliance, and it added to what Charlton always had a good nucleus around that period of hard-working players that, you know, likes of Brownie, John Robinson, Scott Parker, players like that, but adding that little bit of flair.
I just love how much of a little suck up you are as well. Just get Brownie in early, just because you're going to see him on Saturday. Make sure I get my little Brownie to work so hard. I love you.
No, it's nothing to do with that. I've got to deal with it on a weekly basis this season. Like last season, we could let him sit in the studio for a while. This season, I'm going to have him nudging me under the desk. Like, what on earth was that? And like, I've got to deal with that all year. So if you think I'm sucking up to you, you're massively mistaken. Now, I was trying to think of hard-working players, and to be fair, as much as he's my friend, I can admit that Brownie's very, very hard-working. But Klaus just added to that hard-working nucleus of players that did really well for Charlton for so many years. And you know, I think as a signing, as an impact on the club, and I've only picked players that I've seen, so I've not picked players that who maybe precede him, who obviously had longer longevity or maybe got sold for bigger profits or whatever. But for me, during that early 2000 period, which is the most successful period I've seen as a fan, he was instrumental in making sure that we were a recognised Premier League football club.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, moments of class, something we've never had before. Completely agree with you. We bought him for 4 million, sold him for from Bolton, sold him for 1.25 to Fulham. He made 128 appearances and 16 goals. I mean, that's a good return. You're still getting money back on that. And the fact that he makes that big of an impact, I think he's a great shout. I'm going to say, I don't think he's as big as mine, but there we go. And also afternoon to Tom and Josh who've checked in. Hello, lads. We'll be taking your votes as well. I mean, we're getting flooded. We're up to 4 live viewers now, Greg. This is getting a bit much. So just try and hold your hat on. But in answer to your role of Klaus Jensen, I've got this man here.
Barnes involved as well, but it's going to come to Mills! Wonderful goal!
Okay, so Danny Mills, obviously a big name now. I heard him a lot on TalkSport over covering England and stuff like that. We paid 250 grand to Norwich for him. He plays every game pretty much in the promotion season in 98. We sell him for 4 million to Leeds. It's a massive markup. It's huge, I mean, huge amount of profit you're making. And he also goes on to get 19 appearances for England. So he only plays a season, but it's the season we get promoted. He starts in the playoff final team. And then we go on to make my maths is shit. 16 times the amount that we paid for him. So I mean, that's big money, isn't it? Do you know much about Mills? Did you? I mean, I'm guessing you've seen the clips and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know more of. I know Millsy from the Leeds days in terms of actually as a player. When I first started watching football was that 2000, 2001 period, and that's when Leeds were really high in the Premier League, and at one point looked like they could even win the title. So I remember him playing in the 2002 World Cup. So it probably wasn't until I was only 6 then, so it probably wasn't until I was about 8 or 9 I realised he actually played for Charlton, was a Charlton player. But yeah, no, I think it's a really good shout because it's probably a player who maybe actually wasn't the greatest for Charlton in necessarily. He wasn't.
He's young. He was really young. He hadn't learned his trade yet, really. We kind of taught him his trade, and that's why he gets the big money move to Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if you speak to quite a few players from that time, if you said, "Oh, he's going to be our starting right back in the 2002 World Cup," quite a few wouldn't have said so.
Yeah.
But as a footballer, what he did in his career, I mean, he plays for some really good teams. But also that return, as you say, he's gone from, we paid 200k for him. Isn't the story that Curbs was managing an England B team or under 21 team?
Yeah. So under 21s he played. So he played for under 18s, under 21s, and then obviously he gets his caps, 19 caps. And the thing is that, oh, sorry, go on, finish the story. Is that how we came across him then during that?
Yeah, no, that was that. Yeah, I think Curbs told this on. I think we had Millsy on Charlton TV this year, and I think the story was that he saw him close hand training and felt that he could be a really good talent and add to the defence, because at the time I think we literally just had Brownie at right back, and I wasn't around in '98. I think we were maybe struggling for depth in that area. And like ultimately, as you've pointed out, I mean, he had 1.5 seasons with us, and one of them was getting promoted and then playing in the Premier League, and then goes on to play for England after us. So, and I think I don't know what your 5 is, you know what mine is, but what's quite a testament is that Alan Copesley could spot a player and could spot someone who can make a real difference. And it was actually, if we did our worst transfer, I imagine it would be quite difficult to actually find 5 players that Curbs paid for that would be anywhere near that list. But
he did pay for Francis Jeffers, so don't get carried away. But I mean, you're right. So I've done the same as you. I've looked back, and some of the money he got some of these players for that made his main team. It's unbelievable. He was. They'd say Harry Redknapp's a wheeler dealer. Like Curbishley must be the best at spotting a bargain, because he gets some incredible players in. So okay, right. What do you reckon then? Do you know who Mills is? You know who plays. Where does your vote still lay with Jensen? Are you sticking strong on Jensen? Because I mean, like you said, and I don't disagree with you at all, the moments that Jensen gave us was unbelievable. But I don't remember Jensen ever grabbing the scruff of the neck of the team, considering he's in the heart of the midfield, and dragging us through a game. But equally, Danny Mills is never going to score that goal against Arsenal, is he? So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going purely from a footballing point of view, financially point of view, then you're going Mills, aren't you? Because essentially you've paid 250k for him and then sold him for 4.5? 4 million. So,
I don't know if there are any add-ons, but yeah.
So I mean, automatically you say, "Oh, that one," because that 4 million then probably helped buy Klaus. But equally, I look at the impact of the player and on the team, and it's a tough first one. Klaus is one of my favourite all-time Charlton players, so I cannot rule against Klaus. So I'm happy you to take the final shout with that one.
Well, Tom's gone with Jensen as well. I think that's fair. I think we got more games out of Jensen. He played for longer. He had bigger impacts. There's definitely more moments that you remember from Jensen. So I'll give you that one. 1-0 to you, Greg, and we'll move on to the next one. Tom. Thanks, Tom. Don't be afraid to get involved, lad. Have your votes. Let us know who you think. Right, so next one. Let's go to your next player. The next one you voted for was this. This is going to be tough. This is going to be very tough to beat. Okay, so it is this guy here.
That we showed Benty the 2 goals against them on Saturday, and now we see some incredible saves from you, Dino. What do you remember about this?
Well, Coach Kylie would be saying to player Kylie, "Could you have come for the cross?" And then I'm thinking, well, I don't think you could stand your ground, and then. But no, I think that one save of the season that year in the Premier League. So flying with that. But no, listen. Do you know the best thing?
Dean Kiely. I mean, what a legend. I mean, what more? I mean, I think what you said before about players that stopped us being a yo-yo club, I'd say he's the biggest one because he was a class above.
Yeah, I mean, moments like that are exactly why he is on this list. But also, he actually is a financial one as well in terms of we didn't pay that much for him. And how many years was he with us? Something like 6 years. Am I right?
Yeah.
6 years.
I think you're right. 222 appearances. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've paid, for a keeper to last that long for us. It's very easy to get a goalkeeper wrong. I mean, just look at even Ferguson at Man United got a few wrong down the years. Dean was the first goalkeeper I saw play for Charlton, and I remember when he left thinking that we'd made a mistake because I felt like he hadn't finished what he started really at Charlton. I didn't think he was massively declining, and I think one of the reasons we went down wasn't because Scott Carson wasn't a good goalkeeper. He even won Player of the Year, but it's having people like that in the dressing room. And I've been lucky enough to spend time with Dean a little bit through Brownie. And the one thing I'll say is that both those two people left it. Well, Brownie left 2002, and then Kiely left 2005 or 6, or whatever it was. And when you lose people like that who are really grounded, really humble, nice, genuine people, and then that dressing room of the Dowie year, you look at some of those personalities and you think, well, it's no wonder we went down. And I don't think that could be stressed highly enough with football squads, is having good people in there to guide, even some that might not be so good, but might just need a little bit of helping. Mm-hmm. And I think the influence he had in that change room was very clear as well. So, yeah, Dean Kiely's an easy one for me. I think as a goalkeeper, arguably one of the best we've ever had. I wasn't around during the Sam Bartram days, but and Bartram's obviously had a bigger legacy and will have a bigger legacy than Dino. But Dean Kiely's my selection.
Okay, so a good shot. I mean, we paid $1 million for him, 222 appearances. It's good, but does it beat my choice? So this is a muted one, so I'm going to have to talk over it. It's Johnny Jackson. I mean, to think that he's in at number 4 is pretty big. But
did we pay for Johnny?
Sorry?
Did we pay for Johnny?
175k. We did.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And he went from Notts County. We bought him from Notts County, 175k. Now, I have probably fucked up all of my stats, so please don't take anything I've said for fact, but I've used a mixture of Transfer Market and Wikipedia. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, we bought him for 175k from Notts County. He goes on to make 275 appearances for us, scores 55 goals, talisman. I mean, I think he's probably, in the last 20 years, one of the biggest icons of Charlton. I don't think they get much bigger than that in the last sort of 15, 20 years.
Yeah, mate, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I the only thing I'm questioning is literally, was he a paid transfer? This is the debate.
You're thrown into disrepute. Oh my god. Okay,
I'm doing this because if we did 3 transfers, I had him in mind alongside someone else I'm not going to mention because we might do the 3 transfers episode.
And we need someone who knows what we're talking about. That's what we need.
Yeah, I'm certain it was during a period where we had no money. And we signed him on loan initially when Parkinson was manager. And if we paid a fee, which you could, mate, I'm not saying I know 100%.
Because I've got to find where I got the bloody stat from and I can't find it.
if we did pay for him, then even if we pay for him, he probably makes my list, to be honest. So it comes down to that, pure and simple.
Okay.
Maybe we should get Tom on the case. Get someone on the case. Did we pay for Jacko?
I'm sure. You tell me about Johnny Jackson while I find the stat.
Yeah, well, I mean, so
how was he when you got to deal with him a lot, didn't you?
Yeah. I can't speak highly enough of him as a person. He's a really normal person. Obviously I knew him as a player, as a fan. He was the first player who I was a fan of, if that makes sense, before going into doing this sort of thing. So because he'd been there since 2010 when I first started, when I was watching Charlton. So how old would I have been? I've been about 15 when he joined Charlton, and then 6 years later, I was then doing commentary, and I did a bit of work experience and got to interview him, and then eventually got to know him basically. And he's just a really nice human being, like genuinely cared about the club. Amazing captain. Talking about good people in the dressing room, he was certainly that. And he was kind of let down by our ownership, really, because even after Pauli left, Jacko was highly influential in making sure that the group of players still did well over the next couple of seasons. And it wasn't until, we would then sign a load of players that it started. So, okay.
So hang on, no, I might be completely wrong. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but for me...
Yeah, no, this is free transfer.
Yeah, I've read that. What does MV mean then? Oh my God. Luckily, there's no one watching this bit. We've just lost all our viewers. That's why I've thrown it into distribute. Well, not only do you get it by default, but also that means you can use him in your free one, and I can't use it. There we go. All right. Well, look, I've embarrassed myself. Let's move swiftly on.
No, well, that's not your fault, Sam, is it? Let's be honest.
Well, it is. I didn't do the research properly, Greg. Don't pity me.
Let's a spoiler for our next free transfer one that Jacko gets in there, and we'll talk about him then.
Yeah.
I'll try and remember some funny Jacko stories.
All right, so your next guy. Now, this guy we definitely did pay. I believe we paid 115k for him. We sell him for $1 million. Makes 208 appearances and he scores 20 goals. Your choice was this.
Kinsella always gives the impression of being here, being there, and being everywhere. 1 minute on his own goal line, the next making vital tackles, then showing some superb vision. And probably finishing off a move as well. He didn't win his first cap for the Republic.
Mark Kinsella, I mean, again, another complete Charlton legend. You don't get much better than that. And to think that you get him for 150k, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, no, well, I feel a bit bad picking him, not because of any of that, but purely because I saw him for maybe 3 or 4 games. So he only just qualifies for me. But as got that word again, influence, sign him in the mid-90s when, he wasn't really well fancied as such. It wasn't like it was a really popular signing, I imagine, at the time. It wasn't like we were signing a big-name player. He was somebody playing in the lower leagues. And, again, the eye of Alan Curbishley to not only bring him in, but then eventually become captain. And again, by the sounds of it, a brilliant person to have in the change room, was crucial to Charlton becoming a successful club during that period. And I think, again, he had a bit of resale as well. I mean, You might have the stat there, but we sold him for a profit, I believe, as well to Aston Villa. He became an international with Ireland. And I think when you're looking at transfers, I don't think many can get better than that in terms of you sign someone who does fantastic things for Charlton, guides Charlton to the next stage of their development as a club, and then you sell him for a profit, and then he, to be honest, selfishly for Charlton, doesn't end up having anywhere near as good spells with the clubs after Charlton. So it's not like you've sold him and then regret it. You've sold him at the right time. He's done the brilliant things for you. He's made himself an international, and then you've let him go and got money for it that we then went and spent on other players to improve us to our best ever Premier League finish. So, what more can I say than that? I mean, it's, as a transfers go, it's maybe the only debate is whether he should be higher.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, I think Curbishley said, I've heard it in a couple of interviews, that he's the one who kind of steered the ship, and he goes like, if we don't get him from Colchester, that team looks completely different. And he's there setting the set, and apparently he got a lot of influence from Roy Keane in that Republic of Ireland squad. There's not loads of players in there, not of any quality, but he's playing next to Roy Keane, friendlies, international games, and even at one point takes over from him for a little bit. To be learning from that kind of pedigree of player, that's the beauty of international that you don't really talk about. Like, we see our players go away on international duty and you're like, oh God, well, that's them gone for free 3 weeks or 3 games, whatever. But if you think they're going off and playing with players like Roy Keane, then they're going to learn a lot and they're going to grow a lot. And I think he kind of modelled himself on Keeney a little bit.
Yeah, well, exactly that. I mean, you know, we've got a couple of young internationals in our team that, you know, have played against some massive names. I think Daniel Kanu for Sierra Leone went and played against Mohamed Salah. So,
yeah,
you know, I think people always underestimate playing internationally, what that can do for a career and how it can advance you and also gets you outside of your comfort zone. And I think someone like Kinsella, especially look at that Republic of Ireland team. I mean, again, my earliest footballing World Cup was 2002, and he played in that when Ireland beat Germany, if I remember correctly, and it was in Japan, South Korea, one of the two. So,
I'm saying yes, like I know. I'm sitting here thinking we paid money for Johnny Jackson. Do not trust anything. I've got no knowledge. I've got no knowledge at all.
Well, it's just as you get older, mate, don't it? Like, I'll be this in a couple of years' time. Don't worry. I'm thinking, when did Jason Newell play for us?
So Kinsella, 150k, we get $1 million for him, 208 appearances, and 20 goals. I've got him with someone of a similar ilk, definitely the same period, and my all-time favourite Charlton player is, and I think you might know more about this guy than I do. Here we go.
Fingertips to it. A fantastic finish to a quite extraordinary game. Jensen's corner. Kinsella. And it's in! Robinson! John Robinson!
Ollie Watkins, eat your heart out. That is unbelievable. So John Robinson, we paid 75k for him. I've checked, paid 75k for him. Makes 332 appearances, scored 35 goals, comes on as a sub in the 75th minute or 76th minute in the playoff final, and also scores one of the penalties. I mean, for money spent, I don't think you get much better return than that. That's pretty epic.
Yeah, Robbo just missed out on mine. So I'm going to be biased straight away, and I can confirm that I'd pick Kinsella over him. But let's not downplay him as a footballer. He achieved so much for Charlton, and again, we keep talking about this 90s period, and I don't think it's a coincidence. And there might even be one or two after I've spoken now that we talk about from that period of. And the majority of Charlton fans that are around that time talk of that 90s period as their favourite, even more so than the Premier League, because we went from a club in exile in the late 80s, early 90s to getting the Valley back, the Valley getting better and bigger year by year, Kerbishley becoming sole manager, and then building this side of real cult heroes and fan favourites. I mean, we've touched on so many already, and Robbo's another one. You know, as you mentioned, for a figure for the figure we paid for him, and then the kind of output he had as a player for Charlton, I can't complain with him being potentially in with a shout. It's just whether Kinsella was a better buy or better player. So this is crazy.
It is. It's hard. It's really hard. I'd say that the reason I put Robinson forward is he plays more than 100 games more than Kinsella. So in terms of appearances, he plays a lot more. We don't get the return on him, fair enough, but we only spent half the money in the first place. And also he does score in the playoff final to take us up. So I'm going to argue because I haven't got enough.
Didn't Kinsella score a penalty though?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Right, hang on. Penalties scored. Penalties. Oh, yeah, he did. Fucking hell. All right, fine. Fair argument. 100 more games.
100 more games, and the price paid is definitely more of the argument. I think the only thing I'll say, and the only reason I'm sticking with Kinsella is I think he was a better player.
You think he's a better player? I mean, Tom's gone with Robinson.
Okay.
Tom in the crowd's gone with Robinson. I think well, it's only two of us to vote, isn't there? And Tom's gone with it, so I think it goes to me. So there we go. John Robinson takes it. There we go. 2-1 to Greg after we discussed the disrepute. Okay, and on to the second. So this is your second highest choice. Let's go. Your penultimate choice. It is. I mean, this is going to be a hard one to beat, but I think I've got you. Let's show your man here. So 825 grand we paid for this player. He makes 244 appearances and scores 2 goals.
Now Svensson. Captain's there again, looking this time for Ewell in the middle, and in behind him was Powell. Unbelievable. 2 goals.
One of his rare goals against his boyhood team as well, Mr. Chris Powell, Mr. Charlton.
Yeah. I mean, we're not just talking about a player here, are we? We're talking about an actual bona fide legend of football.
Yeah.
Someone who goes on to be one of our most successful. Well, when I say one of, he had a success with the club. One of the few that have had a division title win with this club as a manager. Was it 3 spells he had with us as a player?
Yeah, so he got 98 to 2004, then 05, 06, and then back in 07, 08.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a yo-yo player, really, wasn't he, in the end?
Yeah, well, in the end, he I think it was probably a bit like one of those players that probably thinks I'm going to retire this year. I'm going to the club go, yeah, thanks for your service. And he goes off and he goes, I'm still feeling fresh. And the club goes, you know what, we still need a left back. Come back. Yeah, I again, similar to the Klaus shout, he's one of my favorite all-time players. As a human being, one of my favorite all-time human beings. I'd feel bad not putting him in. And I think as a signing, again, the influence of someone like that on the club was huge. And he goes on to play for England for Charlton, one of the first to do that. Well, certainly for a long period, wasn't it? Something like 50 odd years or something like that. The first time a Charlton player had represented England.
And not just a one-off. He gets 5 appearances and he starts. Like, that's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's testified to Charlton during that period. We went from being a championship club or first division as it was back then to being a Premier League side on a regular basis who never really threatened with relegation until we eventually got relegated. Apart from that, obviously the first season. Yeah. And then we develop players more and more to become internationals. Kinsella, another one we just mentioned, but Powley was more than that to me. He was for Charlton. He represented the club enormously from a cultural point of view as well, and the work he did with the trust and stuff like that. And now he's a MBE, OBE, can't remember his MBE. And for me, as a signing, I think we could have easily signed another left back who might not have done things with the club, or we sold a year later or whatever. And I think as signings go, it's quite a hefty feedback in those days, 800k. Yeah. Right? That's probably equivalent to double figure million now, I'd imagine. And yet he performed and delivered for Charlton. So
week in, week out, he's one of those players that it's hard as a left back to have a 9 out of 10 performance, isn't it? But it wasn't like strange for him to have a 9 out of 10 performance, and also he never dropped below a 7. Like every week he was going to be man of the match pretty much. Yeah,
and again, I wish I could turn back the clock, and when I was first started watching Charlton play, I kind of took it for granted, some of these players, and Powley I certainly did. It wasn't probably till I was a bit older that I realised how good he actually was. Because then I saw some of the tripe we had at left back in later years. So, for me, he, I can't speak any more highly of him. I think he's definitely one of the best players to ever represent Charlton, let alone be transfer wise.
So it's going to take a lot to beat him, you reckon? It's going to take a lot to beat this guy. This guy, we think he's, probably a shoo-in. As Tom said in the comments, it's going to take a lot to beat. It's going to take a lot to beat Chris Powell. Let's see if we can do it.
To be involved in probably one of the best games at Wembley in the playoffs was such a highlight. I scored quite a few hat-tricks in my career, but to get a hat-trick at Wembley, it's something you dream of.
Whose side are your family on today?
It's a bit off and off, really, but everybody wants me to score. A lot of them have said, I hope you score and you get beat, but I think we'll win.
You might have one, mate.
I don't know, mate. Maybe.
When you said to me, we're going to do best paid transfers, and I said, I'm only going to pick players who I've seen play, and then I actually had a look at players who I've not seen play, and thought, if I had, they would be in there. And let's not forget. No one asked you to do that.
No one told you.
No.
I'm
just a bit weird, mate. You've won the one. Let's let's call it out. I mean, first of all, I think, does any other striker at that time that we could have signed go and score a hat trick or score those many goals that season to get Charlton out? Probably not. I mean, unless Charlton were able to convince maybe someone like Kevin Phillips or someone like that back in those days. And I think the only sad thing is that we never had the longevity of him, which would have been, I could have seen him, and we could have had him and Andy Hunt up top for years.
Wouldn't it?
To lose not one but two of your best players in those early 2000s, and then still get better as a side again, is a testament to how good of a manager and how good our recruitment team was back in those early days, early 2000 days. So Clive, you had Ollie on, didn't you? And he told you the story of going to his house.
But tell me again, how long we got? We've got a good 25 minutes. Because I didn't know you were there when Ollie was talking about it. He probably did mention, but I can't remember him talking about it. Yeah, it sounds like an incredible. And what always struck me was, why is he not a coach? Why is not every team, like at least teams that had him, got him in their background staff doing the shooting practice? Benny McCarthy was doing it for United. Like, surely Clive Mendonca could be a striker coach. And I always thought it was because maybe it came to him too naturally. But it sounds like he would be the perfect person to have there.
Yeah, mate, completely agree. The day of when we went to his house, so I was doing commentary. Tel was on holiday, I think, and you can imagine how gutted he was when I told him. I think I've never heard him so devastated. I did commentary. I think I did it with Tom Walling, who does Charlton Live. He used to do commentaries with me a few years ago, and we got in the car, as we usually do, to go to these games, and we were going up on a Friday. And we get in the car in the back seat, almost like two young kids. And Ollie's in the front driving, and he turns around and goes, "Oh, we got a surprise for you guys." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice. Maybe we'll be given some new kit," or I don't know. It was before the first game of the season when we played Sunderland. The year we went up, actually, ironically, it was quite a good synergy that we were going to go up from Wembley the day of the season that we went to Clive Mendonca's house. He said, "Oh, we're going to Clive Mendonca's house." And when someone tells you that, you think, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Like, what are you getting out of that?" And he's like, no, genuinely, we're going to his house to do a Charlton, whatever it's called, then Valley Pass interview with him in his front room. And we went to Sunderland, went to this street that he was on, and like, you just wouldn't have thought that Clive. It was quite a busy main road, and it wasn't. I don't mean this in any disrespect at all, but it wasn't like a glamorous road and really quiet. It was just like a normal road that we all live in, basically. And right at the end of it was just his house on its own, like isolated house. And we walked in. The guys went and knocked on the door, and Clive was there. And what a nice human being, just let us in. They did the interview on the sofa, and then when the interview finished, we spent maybe half an hour of him talking football, and he was talking about how he probably regrets not becoming a striker coach, because I think one of the guys asked, "Would you ever have done coaching?" And he was talking about how he watches strikers now, and they don't use their eyes enough, and how they don't target this certain area of the goal. And I learned so much from that half an hour conversation about goal scoring. And it was to say it was an absolute honor is an understatement. He was a really nice human being. He is a really nice human being. And I think it's just a shame for him that I feel like he almost feels a tiny bit of shame in that hat trick, because it came against Sunderland, the place where he lives now. And I think he feels a tinge of, maybe a bit of anxiety of living there and being from there, that maybe people hate him, when in reality it's football. And, Sunderland then went on and got promoted the following year. So it didn't really matter that much,
I mean, they're doing better than us now, aren't they? And the thing is, like, it'll always bounce around. I think we're two very similar clubs in like size and that kind of thing. So I think we'll always bounce around each other. But for me, why would you move out of a city that you will never, ever have to buy a pint again in, ever? He can walk into any bar within a 5-mile radius of Charlton, and he'd never pay for a pint again. It's ridiculous.
I think he's just so humble. I honestly do. I just think he's so I think he's just a normal guy who wants a normal life, doesn't want the kind of like it took a lot for the club to even get him to speak to them, and that wasn't him being rude, it was him just being a bit shy, really. And I think it took basically a conversation with his wife to kind of convince him that this was, you know, talking to Charlton was a nice thing for him to do, rather than, you know, a bit of, oh, I don't want to upset people or anything like that. And like I said, when he talks football, he gets it. I don't know how much he watches now. I don't know how much love he still has for the game. I think the injury was awful for him. And I think, again, 2-3 years later, he has a bigger contract and probably has maybe a different life. But that period of just getting into the Premier League and, you know, football was starting to pay out big wages. And quite a few players who were around in the 90s coming to the end of the career in the early 2000s didn't really benefit from that bit of money. Also, Brownie keeps telling me. But yeah, it's
he's asking, is that why you're deciding who's buying the next pint? Is that
no, it's always me, mate. No, I'm joking.
Well, yeah, okay, I'll take that one then. And I think it would have taken a lot. I don't think there's anyone that's going to beat Mendonca.
To be honest, I thought he was going to be number one, so I'm intrigued to see your number one.
This is it, isn't it? This is it. So let's get into it. Let's get into your number one choice of best ever transfers that you've seen play. It's this guy. Let me give you a little bit of background. 2.5 million. We sold him for 16.5. He makes 68 appearances and 31 goals. It's this man here.
Schmerz in. And forward for Bent, and he's on the side again. Could this be two? Got stuck up behind him. Oh, how confident was that?
Janma-esque.
He was so good, wasn't he?
It was unbelievable. But I mean, like that finish, like if that is Janma, isn't it? The winger for Spain. Yamal. Sorry, that's why.
I thought I misheard you. That's why I didn't realize.
Just said it wrong. But like that finish that's not an easy thing to do, especially when he's just sprinted through the whole team pretty much and no one's catching him. He could finish, he's quick, he could head. That he was literally the all-round striker. And then Sven decides to take fucking Theo Walcott to the World Cup. It's I'm still angry about it. I don't know if you can tell.
I've got a memory of that where the following season he was still with us, wasn't he? Yeah, because that was the Dowie year where we got relegated. So the first month or so, I had a cardboard cutout of, like, I don't know what it was, like the back of Shreddies or something, and I hand wrote on there, "That's why you should have taken him to the World Cup" or something. And I had it on my lap. I was only about 10 or whatever. 11, and I had it on my lap, and then he scored, and then I held it up thinking, oh, Sven's going to see this and go, oh, damn, I should have done it.
You didn't. Should have done it. Should have told you. Yeah, it's mental. And the thing is that England go through such a long period of like that Rooney kind of effect, or Michael Owen, really, these young lads who can just set the tournament alight, and you want to cash in on that. But when you've got a player like Ben who's so well established, it would be like not taking Ollie Watkins.
I was going to say that's the comparison to make. It was very similar in terms of, well, Ben was younger, wasn't he? He was 23, 24. He was like he was really looking back. It's amazing that he didn't get linked with bigger team after even one season, because that would happen now, wouldn't it? If I don't know, let's pick a equivalent team. Someone like Brighton had a 24-year-old striker who scored double-figure goals on multiple occasions, he'd be linked with European clubs and everything. Like, I think only back then there was more goal scorers about, wasn't there? You had two strikers back then, so you'd predominantly have more strikers available to try and sign. But that England squad in 2006, Rooney wasn't 100% fit, if you remember going into it. Michael Owen then did his ACL on the second game against Sweden. So you're left with Crouch, who was a good player for England and had a good tournament, and then Theo Walcott. So it would have been a no-brainer to have someone like Bent to come on last 15 minutes, try and nick a goal. Or I think Defoe got dropped as well, didn't he? And they're similar ilk in terms of natural goal scorer. But yeah, what a player for Charlton. I mean, again, the eye of Alan Curbishley. He was a...
How many times did he go and see him? It was like He went to see him 20 times, didn't he? Something
Well,
like
it's
that.
probably convenient it wasn't too far away from Curbs' home, which is why we probably signed quite a few Ipswich lads. But he, you know, he came through at Ipswich, a club that had been doing quite well during that period in terms of they were in the UEFA Cup, a couple of years before he made his debut. So he kind of had good foundations there to come through as a player. But then Curbs kind of turned him into a Premier League goal scorer. And from the very start, he was brilliant. And I don't recall Bent having a bad game necessarily, like thinking, oh, he's absolutely awful. He missed 50 chances. But I've put him as number one because it ticked all the boxes I was looking for when we were deciding this list in terms of the money paid. 2 million for a striker back then was not much. When you consider someone like even like similar player in terms of a goal scorer for Charlton and Jason Newell, we paid an extra couple of million for him. So we only paid 2 million for him. We sold him for 16, which if we hadn't got relegated to Premier League could have been even more. We could have maybe even kept him for half a season and sold him for 20 if he continued to score goals. Played for England with us and was a brilliant player. So for me, it ticked. Like I couldn't find anything that suggested that it shouldn't be nothing but first for my 2001 to present day Page Charlton transfers.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I mean there isn't much more anyone can do. So I'm going to show you mine now. Since the Johnny Jackson fiasco, I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit concerned about my stats. I can't remember where I got this from, but I definitely saw it somewhere.
Sweat from here, mate.
So it's kind of ruined the whole thing for me a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it's £4,000 for this player. We sell him for 330k. He makes 320 appearances and he scores 148 goals. The highest ever Charlton goal scorer.
Which brings us to the winner of our Golden Goals competition of 1977. And what a brilliant goal it was, scored by Derek Hales, then of Charlton, against Hull City down at the Valley.
And Colin Powell for Charlton. To Hales. Little touch for Hunt. Powell again. Long raking strike. Warmer. Powell has continued his run. And Warman couldn't quite pick him up, but now he has. Well, he's gone past him. And he's got a good cross in. Oh, what a goal! Hales again!
And here is the man who scored that winner, now without his beard, Derek Hales, then of Charlton, now, of course, of Derby County. And indeed, we thought it was only right to pay tribute to the man who did so much to make it possible, Charlton's...
Great hair, great moustache, great player.
I mean, you're close, aren't you? I reckon you could pull that off.
Oh, I'm getting there in a couple of. This isn't. This is
a solid beard you've got, mate. It is a solid beard.
I tell you what, it's not good in the heat. I'm hot. I am hot. It's really hot. I've had to close the windows because it's loud as well. But if I'm right, and Tom, you can do the research for me. Let me know if I'm wrong. We pay a very, very small amount of money for him to Luton. I hear it's £4,000. I can't remember where I got that from. Sell him for £330,000, which is exponential. But also, you got a guy who plays 320 games for us in 2 spells, scores 148 goals for us, and also when he goes to Derby, I think the biggest club at the time, and only plays 23 times and then gets 4 goals for them. Then goes to West Ham United, goes 24 appearances for them and then 10 goals. Then he comes back to us and again plays another 191 games and scores another 76 goals. He seems like he was only good for us, pretty much.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think we did pay for him. I don't, because we signed him from Luton, didn't we? So it wasn't free. He didn't really have Bosman's Bosman's wasn't a thing back then. So I think we would have paid something, I imagine, for a player that caliber, or certainly that player of what, probably had potential even back then. So I think you probably are right. I can't actually. It's going to be really hard to decide this one because I think ultimately he became our record goal scorer. And
it's a hard one. I mean, I love Darren Bent. He's one of my favorite. Remember when we signed him? I remember exactly where I was. We were on holiday. I couldn't believe we'd signed this player. There was an Ipswich fan in the place we were staying. He was like, he's going to get caught offside all the side because he plays on the shoulder. I remember these specific things. And then we signed Marcus Bent for pretty much, I think it was the same fee we paid for Marcus Bent and we paid for Darren Bent, which blows my mind now. And I was like, they're going to have the Bents up front, the bench strikers. That's a brilliant thing. The headlines write themselves. And then, so like Darren Bent was a key part of my Charlton history. But when you look at best of all time, how can you not pick the guy who's got the most amount of goals? Like you can't, I don't think.
I think the person that we've mentioned on this before or earlier, certain Terry Smith would have me if we didn't have Derek Hales somewhere on this list. So look, I think recency bias is a thing, and the majority of Charlton fans, certainly from my generation, know Darren Bent and watch Darren Bent and love Darren Bent. However, I dread to imagine the amount of Charlton fans who were around when Derek Hales played, and you ask them the question in terms of who was a better player, who did more for Charlton, or who had the better longevity, they would say Derek Hales. And who am I to complain? Who am I to argue with Killer? As someone with Killer as their nickname, I certainly wouldn't argue with Mr. Hales himself about it. So yeah, look, I'm struggling to really find a real case to stick with Benty. I really am.
I mean, Tom's done.
Has Derek Hales ever done Drive on TalkSport? There you go.
What a good question that is. I mean, that's what we want to get. That's what we need to get to the bottom to. Tom said the same thing. Got to go to Derek Hales purely based on the fact that my dad hasn't stopped going on about him. So, all right. And that means that I win it 3-2. I've got to be honest. I feel a bit bad about the Johnny Jackson thing, but Derek Hales, right? He's touted as being a bit of a character. I think he had a fight with one of his players at Gillingham. Do you ever listen to
Mike Flanagan, wasn't it? Joel.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to Quickly Kevin, the 90s football podcast?
Yeah, I heard Curbs on there years ago.
Yeah, it was brilliant. But they highlighted an interview, and I just wanted to do it with you quickly because he doesn't come across as the most charismatic player of all time. So this was a magazine done in 1979 from the Charlton program. So this is the interview they did with him, and this is in the Charlton program. So I remember getting the program when I was a kid, going through, find out more about my favorite players. These were the questions that were asked and the answers. So best goals scored, I enjoy all the goals I score. Best goal seen scored, don't have a favorite. Most difficult opponent, all opponents have a job to do. Most memorable match, I don't have one. Biggest thrill, birth of my son Danny a few weeks ago. Biggest disappointment, being treated unfairly. I mean, come on, Derek, keep it light, mate. This is miscellaneous likes, going out shooting. Miscellaneous dislikes, tolerating boring people. It's what a legend. I mean, it goes on and on. But if you definitely look up that episode of Quickly Kevin, because the amount of it paints an interesting picture of life in the 70s, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what an interview. I mean, was that with Shoot, was it, back in the day?
No, it was the Charlton program.
That's the Charlton program.
Yeah, it's in the Charlton program.
So that happened now. They just wouldn't publish it, or usually with so I've done program interviews before, and if someone's given quite a short answer, you kind of try and tailor it out as much as you can. So if someone said, what's your biggest disappointment? Said, I'm being treated unfairly. You'd go, I'm not so sure. I don't really like rain, but it's probably be. So
this guy who was writing this out really didn't do him any favors. Best films seen this year. I don't go to the cinema. I mean, give us a bit of colour. Do you know what I mean? Paint a picture. Tell me something.
But do you think that added to his personality of
maybe?
I don't give a shit. I'm here to score goals. I ain't here to do program interviews. I'm going to get goals for Charlton. I think apparently Darren Bent was similar, but I'm not sure.
He wouldn't. Oh, have you heard Darren Bent on TalkSport? He's great.
Him. He's great. He's a nice guy as well, Darren. Yeah.
He still speaks quite highly of us as well, doesn't he? I think it was where he had his most successful period. He went on to bigger clubs, and obviously everyone remembers the beach ball thing. But in terms of actually like where he had his most prolific part of his career, I think it's still got to be Charlton, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, completely agree.
Okay, so what do we go? So that's in terms of players, I win 3-2. Just saying, it does help when you've got the whole history to go for. But what would you say? Who would you say, looking at those 5? Do we think that Derek Howes has been the best ever signing? Does Clive Mendonca take it? Does Kinsella or I mean, do we just think that Derek Howes is the greatest ever transfer? Is that what this is coming to?
Yeah, it probably is. If you look at, again, ticking the 4 boxes in terms of longevity, price paid, price received for him, impact to the club culturally and whatnot, you'd probably say it was. Clive, obviously, from getting us up to the Premier League and giving Charlton fans probably their best ever day as a fan that day in '98, and then obviously a little bit in the Premier League as well, but didn't have the longevity, obviously, and that wasn't his fault. And we didn't get a resale for him, so maybe it's only right that Derek does take that accolade. I mean, there was others I was thinking of. Did we actually pay anything for people like Sam Bartram, Keith Peacock? But I don't think we did we?
I looked into it, and Sam Bartram came down looking for work, so I don't think they did. And I think Keith Peacock was around the youth system. So
that's what I seem to remember.
Well, we'll do that next time. Next time it'll be free transfers, and I promise I'll do my research better next time, just to make sure I'm right. But yeah, it's been really fun. Tom asked an interesting question, actually. If you're looking very, very recently, so let's say in the last season, who do you pick as being the best player? He says, does Mr. May make the list? Because if you're looking at all those things, impact and resale value, I think he probably does, doesn't he? I mean, we made a profit on it.
In terms of our best transfer over the last 2 years, or not? Yeah, but that showed it out. Best paid. I mean, we signed him. He scored 20 odd goals in the season, and we sold him for nearly, what was it, 800k profit or something, or 700k profit. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
I did call it, didn't I? In that video, I called it. He wasn't in the picture of
the season tickets. Yeah. Well, there was lots of confliction around that time. There was lots of no. It's I think ultimately he probably got told at the end of last season, and this is just opinion, this is not fact. I think he got told at the end of last season that we want you here. There's not a chance. Sorry, you're probably not going to be our regular striker. You're probably going to play maybe half the amount of games starting wise and coming off the bench, and we're going to mix and match 4 or 5 different strikers that we've got.
Well, that's what he was doing at the end of last season, was it? Under Jones at the end of last season.
Exactly that. And look, you look at the last 3 or 4 games when he was going for League One Golden Boot, and last game of the season he got taken off after 45 minutes. He probably wasn't happy with that. So yeah, look, I think it's a shame that he's gone. But ultimately, this is where the "In Jones We Trust" motto has to come through, and think we've signed 2 strikers to replace that. They look good together when you watch them in the naked eye. That they're gonna make a difference to the squad overall. So we'll just have to judge it by the end of the season. But in terms of an actual transfer, without shadow of doubt, he'd be the best one we've paid for and got a return for those years. So yeah.
Cool. Right. So next, I don't know exactly when the next one's going to be. Me and Greg's diaries have got to align, but it's going to be free transfers. So get in your shout for who you think has been our best ever free transfer. You're covering Dartford. No, when's the next? Oh, Palace. Is that behind closed doors?
Yeah, but the difference is we're allowed to stream.
Okay.
I think a lot of questions with Tuesday was why wasn't we allowed to stream? And I think basically Mill didn't want us to stream. I don't think it was a Charlton related thing. But tomorrow, yeah. Usually people think behind closed doors means no one wants fans there. It's probably not true. In this case, we've got our pitch being redeveloped. Crystal Palace, I imagine, have got their pitch being redeveloped. So it's probably literally logistical for the reason they're doing it at a training ground. So
well, that's a good question that you might not know the answer to.
Yeah.
We're not playing Welling, are we?
No.
What is that? We don't talk about that. We're not allowed.
I don't know the ins and outs. From memory, the reason is so last year we played quite a few non-league teams, and they saw that as being one of the reasons why maybe we weren't quite up to scratch come the first game of the season.
We've always played Welling's always been the first.
Yeah, well, I think part of our agreement with Dartford. So Welling have had pitch problems for years.
Oh, right, okay.
So I know last year they had some real big problems. I think this year is fine, and I don't want to be sued by Welling. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, Ollie, as you know,
they're one of the two people watching.
Ollie, as you know, is a friend of mine, so I'm sure he could put in a good word if it does get to that. Yeah, I think basically, so we had to use Dartford for our under-21s, and we still do now. They've got good facilities, and the pitch is better as well. So I think as a thank you for that, we have the game at Dartford now.
Right. Okay.
However, I still believe that we do send an academy game there potentially. Maybe that's not happening this year. I don't know. But I don't think it's a case of Dartford over Welling for life. I just think at this moment in time, we're choosing to do the Dartford game.
Okay, cool. Well, I've got to wrap it up there because I've got to go and pick up my little one. Thank you so much for watching. Greg, thank you so much.
Cheers, Sam. Cheers, guys.
Really appreciate it. Tom, as you said in the comments there, yes, please put your top 5 free transfers in the next one. We're going to be doing the free transfers, so let us know who you think for that one, and we will announce the date as soon as we have them. But for now, thank you so much, and we'll see you all soon. Is it done? It says it's done. Done. We're still saying this. Come on. Are you still there? Okay. It's just sort of spinning now and saying it's ending.
That's where we smile and wave.
Other than the cock up at the beginning, it was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, don't say anything